I watched my daughter Emma carefully wrap the gift she had spent weeks creating. Her 9-year-old hands moved with remarkable precision as she tied a blue ribbon around the wooden box she had crafted in her school's woodworking class. The determination in her eyes reminded me of myself at her age, always striving for perfection. "Do you think Uncle Tyler will like it, Dad?" she asked, her voice tinged with both hope and uncertainty. "He's going to love it," I assured her, though a small voice in the back of my mind whispered otherwise. My younger brother Tyler had always been difficult to please, even as a child. At 38, I had spent much of my adult life trying to help my brother succeed. As a financial advisor, with my own thriving firm, I had the means to support him through college, invest in his various business ventures, and most recently, purchase a BMW for him after his latest enterprise collapsed. The luxury vehicle was meant to be both a birthday gift and a means for him to maintain appearances while he got back on his feet. "The box has all these pictures of us inside," Emma explained, opening it one last time to show me. "See? Here's one from when Uncle Tyler took me fishing last summer. And here's one from Christmas 3 years ago. I put in that picture of you and him when you were kids too." The photo she pointed to brought back a flood of memories. Tyler and I standing in front of our childhood home, arms slung around each other's shoulders, gap-toothed grins aimed at the camera. Things had been simpler then, before the competition, the resentment, and the constant financial bailouts. "That was a good day," I said, gently closing the box. "We should head out soon if we want to make it to Grandma and Grandpa's on time." Our parents had insisted on hosting Tyler's 30th birthday at their luxurious lake house, a property they could only afford because of my regular financial contributions to their retirement. After their investment fund collapsed 10 years ago, I had stepped in without hesitation. Family takes care of family had always been my philosophy. As Emma and I drove toward the lake, I allowed myself to feel hopeful. Perhaps this milestone birthday would mark a turning point for Tyler. Perhaps this time, my investment in him both financially and emotionally would finally yield returns in the form of maturity and gratitude. "I can't wait to give Uncle Tyler his present," Emma said, carefully balancing the box on her lap. I nodded, one hand on the wheel, the other reaching over to squeeze her shoulder. He's lucky to have such a thoughtful niece. The party was already in full swing when Emma and I arrived at my parents' lake house. The sprawling deck overlooking the water was filled with guests, many of whom I recognized as Tyler's college friends and business associates. My brother stood near the grill, beer in hand, holding court with a group of admirers. "Abel, you made it," my mother called, approaching us with arms outstretched. She embraced me briefly before turning her full attention to Emma. "And look at my beautiful granddaughter. Don't you look pretty today?" Emma beamed under the praise, though she kept a protective hand on the gift box. "Where should we put the presents?" I asked, gesturing to both my wrapped package containing the keys to my vacation property in Colorado and Emma's handmade gift. "On the table by the French doors," my mother replied. "Tyler will open them after dinner." Throughout the afternoon, I noticed my brother making the rounds among his guests, prominently displaying the keys to his BMW and speaking loudly about his latest business ideas. Several times, Emma tried to approach him, only to be brushed aside as he continued conversations with his friends. "Dad, Uncle Tyler keeps ignoring me," she whispered after her third attempt. "He's just busy with his guests, sweetie," I explained, though I felt a familiar disappointment settling in my chest. "You'll get to talk to him when he opens your gift." Dinner was served buffet style, and as we ate, I overheard snippets of Tyler's conversations that made my fork pause halfway to my mouth. "Yeah, the investment firm is really taking off," he was saying to an attentive young woman. "Being the owner has its perks, like being able to help my brother Abel out with a job. Family takes care of family, you know." I nearly choked on my food. Tyler was claiming to own my company? The company I had built from the ground up over 15 years of 60-hour work weeks and sacrificed vacations? Before I could process this information fully, my father announced it was time for the gift opening. Guests gathered around as Tyler took center stage, making a show of appreciating each present with exaggerated enthusiasm. When he reached for the large envelope from me, I tensed slightly. "What's this, big brother?" he asked with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Just a little something for your birthday, I replied evenly. Inside the envelope were the keys to my vacation property in Aspen, along with a note explaining he could use it for the upcoming winter season. His eyes widened momentarily before he composed his features. Thanks, he said with a nod, quickly setting it aside to reach for the next gift. Finally, only Emma's present remained on the table. She stepped forward eagerly as Tyler picked up the wooden box. I made it myself, Uncle Tyler, she explained, her voice bright with pride. It's a memory box with pictures of all of us inside. Tyler turned the box over in his hands, his expression shifting from neutral to disdainful in seconds. The room quieted as he examined it, opening it briefly to glance at the carefully arranged photographs inside. Cheap, worthless trash, he declared loudly, snapping the box shut. Then, without warning, he tossed it directly at Emma. The corner of the box struck her cheek before falling to the floor, its contents spilling across the hardwood. Emma's hand flew to her face, a small trickle of blood appearing where the wood had nicked her skin. Her eyes filled with tears as she stood frozen in shock. The room fell completely silent. I started forward, my body moving before my brain could catch up. But what stopped me in my tracks wasn't just my brother's cruel action, but my parents' reaction to it. They exchanged glances and smirked. My mother leaned toward my father and whispered something that made him chuckle and nod. Kids need to toughen up, I heard my father mutter, just loud enough for those nearby to hear. In that moment, something crystallized within me. This wasn't just about Tyler anymore. This was about a family system that had enabled and encouraged his behavior for decades. I gently led Emma from the room, my mind already calculating what needed to happen next. As we walked away, I heard Tyler resume his conversation as if nothing had occurred, this time clearly stating to his friends that he had given Abel a job out of pity at his firm. The pieces suddenly fit together, the arrogance, the entitlement, the lies, and behind it all, my parents' silent approval. In the guest bathroom, I dampened a clean washcloth and carefully pressed it to Emma's cheek. The cut wasn't deep, but the emotional wound clearly was. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. "Why does Uncle Tyler hate my gift?" she asked between hiccups. I worked so hard on it. I knelt in front of her, meeting her eyes. "This isn't about your gift, Emma. This is about Uncle Tyler and his problems, not about you. What you made was beautiful and thoughtful, but Grandma and Grandpa were laughing," she whispered, her voice small. That observation struck me like a physical blow. Children notice everything, especially the reactions of adults they trust. Emma hadn't just registered Tyler's cruelty, but also my parents' tacit approval of it. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes too," I said carefully. "What happened wasn't right, and it wasn't funny." After ensuring the bleeding had stopped, I gave Emma my phone. "Why don't you play that puzzle game you like while I go talk to the grown-ups? We'll head home soon." She nodded, already looking exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the afternoon. I pressed a kiss to the top of her head and returned to the party with a plan forming in my mind. To everyone's surprise, including Tyler's, I didn't confront him. Instead, I rejoined the gathering with a pleasant smile fixed on my face. I made small talk with guests, accepted a slice of birthday cake, and even laughed at my brother's jokes as if nothing had happened. When it came time to leave, I approached Tyler with a warm handshake and the same envelope I'd given him earlier. "Almost forgot," I said casually. "The access code for the security system at the Aspen property is written on the back of the note. Enjoy it, brother. You deserve it." Tyler's momentary confusion gave way to a smug smile. "Thanks, Abel. I might take some clients up there for a retreat. Good for business, you know." I nodded agreeably. "Of course. Whatever you need." As soon as Emma and I were in the car and driving away from the lake house, I pulled into a quiet roadside park and made a phone call. "Jackson, I need you to pull together all the financial records relating to my brother Tyler and my parents," I told my law firm's most trusted accountant. "Everything from the past 10 years. College tuition payments, business investments, personal loans, the BMW purchase agreement, everything." "Is everything okay, Abel?" Jackson asked, concern evident in his voice. "It will be," I assured him. I also need you to prepare documentation for removing Tyler as an authorized user on all my accounts and credit cards, and draft a formal notice of loan repayment for the outstanding balances. After ending the call, I made several more from the same spot, each one a careful step in what I was beginning to think of as my extraction plan. With each conversation, my resolve strengthened. On the way home, Emma fell asleep in the passenger seat, emotionally drained from the day's events. Looking at her peaceful face, now bearing a small bandage on her cheek, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about standing up for myself anymore. It was about showing my daughter what healthy boundaries looked like. The following morning, I received an unexpected call from my mother. "Abel, you left so early yesterday. Is everything all right?" Her tone suggested nothing unusual had occurred, as if she hadn't witnessed her grandchild being physically hurt by her son. "Emma was tired," I replied neutrally. "Did Tyler enjoy the rest of his party?" "Oh, he was over the moon with that vacation property," she gushed. "Though between you and me, I think he's already making plans to sell it. He mentioned something about needing capital for a new business opportunity." My grip tightened on the phone. The property wasn't Tyler's to sell. The paperwork I'd given him was for usage rights only, not ownership. The fact that he was already plotting to liquidate a gift confirmed I was making the right decision. "Mom, I wanted to ask you something," I said carefully. "Yesterday, I overheard Tyler telling people he owns my financial advisory firm. Did you know he was saying that?" There was a pause, then a dismissive laugh. "Oh, you know how Tyler is. He likes to make an impression on people. It's just his way of putting himself in a better light socially. By lying about owning my business? The business I built? Don't be so sensitive, Abel. It's not like it hurts you any. You've always been so successful on your own. Tyler needs these little boosts to his reputation." The conversation confirmed what I had begun to suspect at the party. My parents weren't just enabling Tyler's behavior, they were actively encouraging it, and apparently had been for years. Later that day, I received a packet from Jackson containing the financial records I'd requested. The numbers were staggering even though I'd lived them. Over $300,000 in business investments for Tyler, $70,000 for his failed attempt at law school before he dropped out, the $80,000 BMW, monthly stipends, credit card payments, and that didn't include the nearly $2 million I'd contributed to my parents' retirement fund after their own financial collapse. But what truly shocked me was a separate document Jackson had included. It was a loan application with Tyler's signature, using my business as collateral. He had been attempting to secure additional financing by claiming partial ownership of my firm. The application had been rejected due to inconsistencies in the documentation, but the attempt itself was fraudulent. This wasn't just about a cruel comment at a birthday party anymore. This was about years of manipulation, lies, and financial exploitation, and it was time for it to stop. Over the next week, I maintained normal communications with Tyler and my parents. I answered phone calls, responded to texts about trivial matters, and gave no indication that anything had changed. Meanwhile, I launched what amounted to a full financial forensic investigation into my brother's activities. What I discovered left me both angry and oddly sad. The vacation property I had allowed Tyler to use showed signs of systematic asset stripping. The caretaker's monthly reports, which I'd previously skimmed, revealed that furniture, artwork, and even appliances had been gradually disappearing. When questioned, the caretaker said Tyler had assured him these items were being moved to Abel's main house or taken for repair. None of them had ever arrived at my home. More disturbing were the credit inquiries on my personal credit report. Somehow, Tyler had obtained enough of my personal information to attempt opening several credit cards in my name. Most had been denied, but 2 had been approved. Both were maxed out with charges for expensive restaurants, designer clothing, and high-end electronics. My quiet investigation expanded beyond finances when I discovered Tyler had been visiting our 86-year-old grandmother with unusual frequency. Concerned, I arranged to have lunch with her at her assisted living facility. "Tyler's been such a dear lately," she told me, patting my hand affectionately across the table. "He visits every Sunday now. Says he wants to make sure I'm being properly cared for. That's thoughtful of him, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. He's been helping me organize my affairs too, she continued. Even brought a nice young man from his office to update my will. Tyler says it's important to make sure everything goes to the right people when the time comes. My stomach clenched. Grandma, Tyler doesn't have an office or employees. He's between jobs right now. Her face fell slightly. But he said he was running that investment company with you, that you were partners. I'm afraid he misled you, I said gently. I own the company alone. Tyler has never worked there. After lunch, with my grandmother's permission, I contacted her actual attorney, who confirmed my fears. Tyler had indeed brought someone claiming to be a legal consultant to modify her will, significantly reducing my share and Emma's future inheritance, while increasing his own. Fortunately, the attorney had been suspicious enough to delay processing the changes. As the week progressed, I met with a series of experts, forensic accountants, attorneys specializing in financial fraud, and even a family therapist who helped me understand the dynamics at play. What you're describing is a classic enabling system, the therapist explained. Your parents created an environment where Tyler never faced consequences, while you were expected to be the responsible one who fixed everyone's problems. It's a common family pattern, but exceptionally destructive. How could they not see what they were doing? I asked, genuinely puzzled. They likely do see it on some level, but admitting it would force them to confront their role in creating the situation. It's easier to maintain the status quo, especially when someone like you is willing to keep the system functioning by providing financial support. The most shocking discovery came toward the end of the week when Jackson uncovered insurance records from Tyler's failed businesses. 3 separate ventures had ended in accidental property damage or inventory loss, all fully covered by substantial insurance policies I had paid for as part of my investment. The adjusters were suspicious in each case, Jackson explained, showing me the reports. But there wasn't enough evidence to prove fraud. However, when you look at the pattern and timeline, he laid out 3 insurance claim forms side by side. Each claim had been filed approximately 2 months after I had expressed concern about the business's performance and suggested I might need to reduce my financial support. He deliberately sabotaged his own businesses to collect insurance payouts when he thought I might stop funding him, I said, the realization landing like a physical weight. And then he used those unfortunate accidents to convince me to invest more. It appears that way, Jackson confirmed grimly. And based on these bank records, he diverted significant portions of both your investment capital and the insurance payments to personal accounts before declaring the businesses failed. By the end of my investigation, I had compiled a comprehensive picture of Tyler's systematic exploitation of my financial support, trust, and family connections. What emerged wasn't just a pattern of entitled behavior, but a calculated scheme of manipulation that had been operating for years, aided and abetted by my parents. The most painful part wasn't the money. It was recognizing how I had participated in creating the very monster I was now dealing with. By repeatedly shielding Tyler from the consequences of his actions, I had helped craft the entitled, manipulative man who thought nothing of hurting a 9-year-old child who adored him. That night, I sat down with Emma for an age-appropriate conversation about what was happening. Uncle Tyler did something very wrong at his party, I explained, and he's been making other wrong choices that have hurt our family. Is that why you've been working so late this week? She asked perceptively. Yes, partly. I've been trying to figure out how to help Uncle Tyler understand that his choices have consequences. Kind of like how you had to miss your playdate when you didn't clean your room last month. She nodded seriously. But bigger, much bigger, I agreed. And just like I love you too much to let you grow up thinking you can ignore responsibilities, I need to show Uncle Tyler that I care too much about him to keep helping him avoid consequences. Will he be mad at you? She asked, her eyes wide. Probably, I admitted. Sometimes people get angry when they're first learning important lessons, but I hope that eventually he'll understand. Like when I was mad about missing my playdate, but then you helped me make a chart to remember my chores, and now I don't miss playdates anymore? I smiled at her simple but profound understanding. Exactly like that, sweetheart. Sometimes the people who truly love us are the ones willing to let us experience the difficult emotions that help us grow. As she hugged me goodnight, I felt a renewed certainty about the path forward. The extraction plan I had been developing was no longer just about protecting my finances or even standing up for myself. It was about breaking a dysfunctional family pattern for the sake of both my daughter and, ultimately, my brother himself. 2 weeks after Tyler's birthday party, I invited him, our parents, and a few key family members to dinner at Riverstone, the most expensive restaurant in the city. I told them I wanted to discuss expanding Tyler's latest business idea, which I knew would ensure everyone's attendance. Emma stayed home with her favorite babysitter, happily working on a new art project. I had decided this confrontation was not something a child should witness, regardless of how Tyler had treated her. I arrived early and confirmed with the manager that the private dining room was prepared as I had requested, with an envelope at each place setting and a small projector ready for use. I had spent considerable time preparing for this evening, and my calm exterior masked the emotional turmoil beneath. Tyler arrived 15 minutes late, making a grand entrance with a woman I didn't recognize. She was elegantly dressed and introduced as Melissa, his girlfriend of 2 months. My parents followed shortly after, along with my Uncle Frank, who had always been something of a mediator in family disputes, and his wife Susan. "Sorry we're late," Tyler announced without actually sounding apologetic. "Had to wrap up a client meeting. Business is booming." I simply nodded and gestured for everyone to take their seats. Throughout the appetizer and main course, I engaged in pleasant conversation, asking about everyone's lives and listening attentively. Tyler dominated the discussion with tales of his business prowess and future plans. "I'm thinking of expanding into commercial real estate next," he declared, draping an arm casually around Melissa's shoulders. "Abel's investment will let me secure those downtown properties we looked at last week." "That sounds ambitious," I replied evenly. "What's your projected return timeline?" Tyler waved a hand dismissively. "Details. That's what I have accountants for. The point is, it's guaranteed to triple our money within a year." "Impressive," I said, noticing Melissa's somewhat skeptical expression as she glanced between Tyler and me. As dessert was served, I cleared my throat. "Before we get into the details of any new investments, I'd like to share something with all of you." I distributed the folders that had been placed at each setting. These contain a summary of my financial contributions to this family over the past decade. I thought it might be helpful for everyone to have a clear picture before we move forward. My mother frowned slightly. "Is this really necessary, Abel? We all know you've been generous." "I think clarity is important in family matters," I replied, turning on the small projector that displayed a simple spreadsheet on the wall. "As you can see, my total investment in Tyler's various businesses amounts to over $300,000. Add to that personal expenses, the BMW, credit card payments, and other support, and we're looking at nearly $500,000 over the past decade." Tyler shifted uncomfortably, but maintained his confident smile. "And it's all going to pay off with this next venture. I've got the Midas touch. Just had some bad luck so far." "That's an interesting perspective," I said, changing to the next slide. "Particularly given the insurance claims filed after each business failure. Claims that coincidentally occurred shortly after I expressed concern about continuing my investments." The room grew quiet. I continued calmly. "The second page of your folders shows the timeline of these events. You'll also find documentation of attempts to secure loans using my business as collateral, credit cards opened in my name without authorization, and a list of items missing from my vacation property in Colorado." Tyler's face had lost its color, but he quickly recovered. "This is ridiculous. You're making it sound like I'm some kind of criminal when all I've done is try to build something successful with the opportunities you've given me." "Opportunities," I repeated thoughtfully. "Is that how you view your relationship with my daughter as well? As an opportunity?" "What are you talking about?" Tyler demanded, his voice rising. "I'm talking about how you treated Emma at your birthday party. How you called her handmade gift cheap, worthless trash, and threw it at her face, cutting her cheek." "She's a kid," Tyler scoffed. "Kids need to learn that not everything they make is special. I was doing her a favor by being honest." From the corner of my eye, I saw Melissa's expression change from confusion to horror. You threw a gift at a 9-year-old child? She asked Tyler directly. It wasn't like that, he insisted. Abel's being dramatic. I have the security footage from Mom and Dad's house, I said quietly, nodding toward the next image now displayed on the wall. The silent video clearly showed the moment Tyler tossed the box at Emma, the impact, and my parents' smirking response. Melissa's hand went to her mouth. That poor little girl. My father leaned forward. Now wait just a minute. Tyler may have been a bit harsh, but children need to develop thick skin. The world isn't going to coddle them. There's a difference between not coddling and cruelty, I replied evenly. But that moment was just a symptom of a much larger problem, one I've enabled for far too long. I looked directly at Tyler. Effective immediately, I'm pulling all financial support. The BMW will be repossessed tomorrow, as the title remained in my name. All credit cards have been canceled. The Colorado property access has been revoked. The monthly deposits into your account will stop. Tyler stared at me for a moment before bursting into laughter. Very funny, Abel. You've made your point. I'll apologize to Emma if it's that big a deal. This isn't a negotiation, I said calmly. It's a notification. From now on, you're on your own. My mother reached across the table to pat my hand condescendingly. Sweetheart, we understand you're upset about Emma, but this is an extreme overreaction. Family helps family. That's what we've always taught you boys. Yes, you have, I agreed. Which is why I've also made the difficult decision to end my contributions to your retirement fund. The monthly transfers will stop immediately. The lake house mortgage, which I've been paying, will become your responsibility again. My father's face flushed with anger. You can't be serious. After all we've done for you? I'm entirely serious, I confirmed. And I would be interested to hear exactly what you believe you've done for me that justifies enabling Tyler's behavior and laughing when he hurt my daughter. The table fell silent. Tyler's smug expression had transformed into one of uncertainty as he began to realize I wasn't bluffing. You'll change your mind, he said finally, though his voice lacked conviction. You always do. You like playing the big shot too much, the successful brother who bails everyone out. Not anymore, I said, standing up. I've settled the bill for dinner. Consider it a parting gift and the last financial support you'll receive from me. As I turned to leave, Melissa suddenly stood as well. Wait, she called. I need to say something. All eyes turned to her, including Tyler's, which had narrowed suspiciously. I've only been dating Tyler for 2 months, she began, her voice slightly shaky. He told me he was a successful investment banker, that he owned the firm with his brother, that he was generous and family-oriented. She turned to face Tyler directly. I believed you. I trusted you. And now I find out you've been lying about everything, even hurting a little girl who just wanted to give you a present. Mel, baby, it's not what it looks like. Tyler started, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. I'm pregnant, Tyler. 6 weeks. I was going to tell you tonight during this family dinner because I thought it would be special. The revelation landed like a bomb in the already tense room. Tyler's mouth opened and closed without producing sound. But I will not, Melissa continued, her voice growing stronger, bring a child into this world with a father who would treat another child the way you treated your niece, who would lie and manipulate his own family, who apparently has never faced a consequence in his entire life. With that, she gathered her purse and coat. I'll be making decisions about this pregnancy on my own. Please don't contact me again. As Melissa walked out, the remaining family members sat in stunned silence. I nodded once to my Uncle Frank, who gave me a small, sad smile of understanding, before I followed Melissa out of the restaurant. In the parking lot, I found her leaning against her car, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, I said quietly, keeping a respectful distance. That couldn't have been easy. She looked up, quickly wiping her cheeks. Easier than staying would have been. Thank you for showing me the truth before I made an even bigger mistake. Do you have support? People you can talk to about the pregnancy? She nodded. My sister, my parents. I'll be okay. If you need anything, or if the baby needs anything in the future, I hope you'll let me know, I said, handing her my business card with my personal number written on the back. Whatever happens between Tyler and me, That child would be my niece or nephew. As I drove home that night, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: relief at having finally broken the cycle, grief for the relationships that would never be the same, worry about the practical fallout that would surely come. But underneath it all was a sense of rightness, of having finally acted in alignment with my true values rather than from a place of obligation and guilt. The first move had been made. Now I would need to stand firm through whatever came next. True to his nature, Tyler initially treated my ultimatum as a temporary setback. 3 days after our dinner at Riverstone, he texted me as if nothing had happened. Looking at expanding the business next week. Need you to transfer $30K to the account. We'll pay back double within 6 months. I didn't respond. The following day, account showing insufficient funds. Bank error? Fix as soon as possible. Again, I didn't engage. On the 5th day, his tone changed. Listen, bro, I know you're making a point, but this is getting ridiculous. Card declined at dinner yesterday. Had to wash dishes. Not funny. By the end of the first week, the reality began setting in as the systematic disconnection of financial support took effect. The credit card companies sent formal notices of removal as authorized user. The bank confirmed the cessation of automated monthly transfers. And on day 8, the BMW was repossessed, while Tyler was reportedly on a date at an upscale restaurant, leaving him stranded and humiliated. My phone rang constantly with calls from both Tyler and my parents, all of which I let go to voicemail. The messages evolved from disbelief to anger to desperate pleading. Abel, this is your mother. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this behavior is unacceptable. Call me immediately. Hey, it's Tyler. Look, I get it. You're mad about the thing with Emma. I said I'll apologize. But the car? Seriously? That's going too far. Abel, please. It's Mom again. Your father had to cancel his golf club membership. Is that what you wanted? To embarrass us in front of our friends? I listened to each message but maintained my silence. The family therapist I'd been consulting had warned me that breaking entrenched patterns would provoke extreme reactions, and she was right. What surprised me was how little their guilt and manipulation tactics affected me now that I'd recognized them for what they were. At home, Emma and I settled into a peaceful routine. Without the constant drain of family drama, I found myself more present and engaged as a father. We cooked dinner together, worked on art projects, and spent weekends exploring parks and museums instead of mediating Tyler's latest crisis. Dad, Emma asked one evening as we built a model rocket together, are Grandma and Grandpa and Uncle Tyler still mad at us? I set down the glue and gave her my full attention. They're upset about some changes I've made, yes, but that's not your worry, sweetheart. Sometimes adults need to sort out complicated feelings with each other. She nodded thoughtfully, her fingers carefully positioning a tiny fin. I think Uncle Tyler was always kind of mad, even when he was smiling. His eyes didn't match his mouth. Her perceptiveness struck me deeply. Children often see truth more clearly than adults, unobscured by social pretense. You might be right about that, I acknowledged. Some people carry anger inside them for a long time, and it comes out in ways that hurt others. Like throwing my box, she said matter-of-factly. Yes, exactly like that. Are you helping him not be so angry anymore? Is that why he can't come over? I considered how to explain the complexity of the situation in terms she could understand. I'm trying to help Uncle Tyler learn that his choices have results, just like yours do. Remember how when you leave your bike in the rain, it gets rusty? She nodded. Well, Uncle Tyler has been leaving his bike in the rain for years, but I kept buying him new bikes, so he never learned to take care of them. Now I'm letting him experience what happens when no one buys him a new bike. That's sad for him, she said quietly, but maybe he'll learn to use a bike cover. I smiled at her simple wisdom. That's exactly what I hope, sweetheart. On the 10th day after the confrontation, as I was leaving my office, I found Tyler waiting beside my car in the parking garage. His appearance shocked me. Gone was the designer clothing and carefully styled hair. He looked disheveled and had clearly lost weight. We need to talk, he said, stepping forward as I approached. I have nothing to say that I haven't already said, I replied calmly, though my heart was pounding. You've ruined my life, he spat. Are you happy now? The perfect brother gets his revenge. This isn't about revenge, Tyler. Then what? What do you want from me? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry about the stupid box. There, fixed. Now turn everything back on. I shook my head. It's not that simple. This isn't about one incident. It's about a lifetime of patterns that need to change. His face contorted with rage. You think you're so much better than me. Saint Abel, the successful one, the responsible one. You've always held that over my head. I've never compared us, I said quietly. I've only ever wanted you to stand on your own 2 feet. By taking everything away, my car, my credit cards, my reputation. The Wilsons canceled their investment in my new venture because they heard rumors I'd been lying about owning your company. You were lying about owning my company, I pointed out. It was just talk. No one got hurt. It was fraud, Tyler. And people did get hurt. I got hurt. Emma got hurt. Now Melissa is hurt. Your choices have consequences, and it's time you experienced them. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. You think you're untouchable with your perfect life and your perfect daughter. But what if something happened to ruin that? What if precious Emma had an accident? My blood went cold. Are you threatening my child? I'm just saying things happen. Bad things. Especially when people get desperate. And you've made me very desperate, brother. Without thinking, I grabbed the front of his shirt and pushed him against a concrete pillar. Listen to me very carefully. If you ever come near my daughter again, if you so much as speak her name, I will bury you so deep in legal problems you'll never see daylight. Do you understand me? A slow, ugly smile spread across his face. There he is, the real Abel, behind the Mr. Perfect mask. Not so different from me after all, are you? I released him and stepped back, realizing he was trying to provoke me. We're done here. Don't contact me or Emma again. As I got into my car, Tyler called after me. This isn't over. You can't just throw away your family. I paused with the door half closed. I'm not throwing away family, Tyler. I'm refusing to enable destruction. There's a difference. That night, I called my security company to upgrade the system at my house and Emma's school. I also contacted my attorney to begin the process of filing a restraining order based on Tyler's thinly veiled threat. What I didn't know at the time was that the parking garage security cameras had captured our entire confrontation, including Tyler's threat against Emma. The footage would prove invaluable in the days to come. Meanwhile, my parents were facing their own reckoning. Without my monthly contributions, they quickly found themselves unable to maintain their lavish lifestyle. The first casualty was their country club membership, followed by the luxury vehicles. Within 3 weeks, a for sale sign appeared in front of the lake house. My father called on a Sunday afternoon, his voice subdued. Abel, we need to talk about this situation. Your mother and I are having to put the house on the market. I'm aware, I replied. The real estate agent called me since my name is still on some of the paperwork. This has gone far enough. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Tyler is suffering. We're suffering. Is that what you wanted? What I wanted was for my family to treat each other with basic decency and honesty. What I wanted was for my daughter not to be physically hurt and mocked for giving a thoughtful gift. What I wanted was to not be lied about and stolen from by my own brother. A long silence followed. Finally, he sighed. We may have been too easy on Tyler over the years. I can acknowledge that. But this scorched earth approach isn't the answer. What would you suggest instead? More second chances that become third, fourth, and fifth chances? More money thrown after bad? More lies overlooked? There has to be a middle ground, he insisted. I proposed middle ground for years, Dad. Every time I suggested Tyler needed to take more responsibility, you and Mom accused me of being ungenerous or unloving. Well, this is what tough love looks like. After we hung up, I sat quietly in my home office, looking at old family photographs. In almost every picture from our childhood, I was positioned slightly behind Tyler, my hand often on his shoulder in a protective gesture that now seemed prophetic. I had been cast as his keeper from the beginning, a role that had defined our relationship for 3 decades. Now that role was over, and we would all have to redefine ourselves in its absence. The path forward wasn't clear, But at least it was a new path, not the endless circle we'd been walking for years. 3 months passed. Spring turned to summer, and the immediate crisis evolved into a steady state of separation. The restraining order against Tyler had been granted after the security footage of his threats was reviewed by a judge. My parents had downsized from their lake house to a modest condo, the financial reality of their situation finally sinking in. I received periodic updates through mutual friends and relatives. Tyler had been forced to take a job at an insurance call center, the only employment he could secure with his spotty work history and lack of completed education. He was living in a studio apartment in a part of town he would have sneered at months earlier. More concerning were the legal consequences beginning to catch up with him. The fraudulent loan applications using my business as collateral had triggered an investigation that uncovered other financial improprieties. He was facing potential charges for identity theft related to the credit cards opened in my name. Despite these developments, I felt no satisfaction, only a lingering sadness for what might have been if different choices had been made years ago. Emma had adjusted well, though she occasionally asked about her grandparents. I had not prevented them from seeing her, but I required that visits take place in public locations and that they respect boundaries regarding discussions of Tyler or financial matters. They had managed 2 such visits, stilted and uncomfortable affairs that left everyone feeling drained. In late June, I received an unexpected call from my grandmother. "Abel, dear, I'd like to host a family dinner next Sunday," she announced without preamble. "I've asked your parents and your Uncle Frank's family. I'd like you and Emma to come as well." "Will Tyler be there?" I asked cautiously. "No," she replied firmly. "The restraining order is still in effect, and in any case, I haven't invited him." I was surprised by her directness. "May I ask what the occasion is? Does a grandmother need an occasion to see her family?" "I'm 86, Abel. Every dinner could be my last." Her guilting technique was so transparent I almost laughed, but I agreed to attend. Something in her tone suggested this was important to her, and despite everything, I respected her too much to refuse. The dinner was held at her assisted living facility's private dining room, an elegant space she had reserved for the occasion. Emma was delighted to see her great-grandmother and quickly engaged her in conversation about the art classes she had been taking. My parents arrived looking noticeably different, both having lost weight and appearing less polished than I remembered. Uncle Frank and Aunt Susan completed the gathering, bringing a homemade apple pie that had been my grandmother's favorite for decades. Throughout the meal, conversation remained carefully neutral, focusing on weather, community events, and Emma's school activities. As dessert was served, I sensed a shift in the atmosphere. My grandmother tapped her water glass with a spoon, commanding attention in a way only she could. "I've brought you all here for a reason," she began, her voice stronger than her frail appearance suggested. "I'm making changes to my will, and I wanted to inform you in person rather than having you discover it after I'm gone." My father straightened in his chair. "Mom, is that necessary right now? We're having a nice family dinner." "It's precisely necessary," she countered. "This family has been fractured by secrets, lies, and enabling behavior for too long. At my age, I don't have the luxury of waiting for everyone to come to their senses naturally." She turned to my parents. "James, Barbara, I've watched for years as you favored Tyler over Abel, creating an environment where one son believed he was entitled to everything, and the other believed he was responsible for everyone. This stops now." My mother began to protest, but my grandmother held up a hand. "I'm not finished. Abel, you've finally taken a stand, and while your methods may seem harsh to some, I understand why they were necessary. However, completely cutting off your parents isn't the long-term solution." I nodded, acknowledging her point without committing to any change. "Tyler," she continued, addressing the empty chair that seemed to represent him, "has been given every advantage and squandered them all. He's manipulated, lied, and stolen from this family while being protected from consequences." She looked around the table, making eye contact with each adult. "I've been complicit too, by remaining silent when I should have spoken up. When Tyler came to me with that so-called legal consultant to change my will, I played along because I wanted to see just how far he would go. And frankly, I wanted to see if anyone else would notice or intervene. She reached for a folder beside her plate. My new will makes several changes. First, Tyler's inheritance will be placed in a trust that can only be accessed after he completes both addiction counseling and financial management education. This was the first I'd heard about any addiction issues, but it explained some of Tyler's more erratic behavior. Second, she continued, the bulk of my estate will skip a generation and go directly to Emma and any other great-grandchildren that may come along, including Melissa's child if she chooses to continue the pregnancy. These funds will be held in trust until they reach age 25, with provisions for education expenses before then. My father's face flushed with anger. So you're disinheriting your own son? After all I've done to care for you these past years? My grandmother fixed him with a steely gaze. All you've done? James, Abel has been paying for my assisted living facility for the past 3 years. He thought I didn't know, but I've always made it my business to know exactly where my money goes and who's providing what. This revelation clearly shocked my parents, who turned to look at me with stunned expressions. I never told them, I said quietly to my grandmother. It wasn't necessary. And that's exactly the problem, she replied. Too much happening in shadows, too many arrangements and assumptions never discussed openly. She addressed the table again. I've been documenting this family's dynamics for years. The patterns are clear and destructive. Abel enables financially, James and Barbara enable emotionally. Tyler exploits everyone. And around we go. Uncle Frank cleared his throat. Eleanor, while I respect your right to distribute your estate as you see fit, is this public announcement really necessary? It seems to be creating more division. The division is already there, Frank, she replied. I'm simply acknowledging it, instead of pretending everything is fine while watching this family destroy itself from within. She turned to me. Abel, you were right to establish boundaries, but family is still family. There must be a path forward that allows for healing without returning to old patterns. I'm open to that, I said carefully, but not at Emma's expense, and not without real change. My grandmother nodded approvingly before addressing my parents. James, Barbara, you have a choice to make. You can continue blaming Abel for the consequences of decisions that you and Tyler made, or you can acknowledge your part in this situation and begin rebuilding relationships based on truth and mutual respect. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. This is all so overwhelming. We've lost our home, our social standing, everything we worked for. You haven't lost everything, my grandmother corrected her. You still have family. You still have the opportunity to know your granddaughter. You still have time to repair what's broken, but that window won't stay open forever. The dinner concluded shortly after, with everyone departing in a subdued mood. As Emma and I prepared to leave, my grandmother took my hand. You did the right thing, she said softly. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. Sometimes love means letting people hit bottom so they can find their own way back up. I'm not sure Tyler will ever find his way back, I admitted. That's not for you to determine, she replied. Your job now is to live your life with integrity and teach Emma what healthy relationships look like. The rest is up to each individual to choose their path. As we drove home, Emma was unusually quiet, processing the tense undercurrents she had undoubtedly sensed during dinner. Great-grandma is really smart, she finally said as we turned onto our street. Yes, she is, I agreed. She's seen a lot in her 86 years. She said family is still family, even when they make mistakes, Emma continued thoughtfully. Does that mean we might see Uncle Tyler again someday, if he says sorry and means it? I considered her question carefully. If Uncle Tyler makes different choices and shows that he's truly changed, then yes, it's possible. But that would take time and a lot of work on his part. I hope he does the work, she said simply. Not because I want another present, but because it's sad when people stay lost. Out of the mouths of babes, I thought, marveling at the wisdom in her young heart. It is sad. And I hope he finds his way too. That night, I sat alone after Emma had gone to bed, reflecting on the day's events. My grandmother had orchestrated not just a family dinner but an intervention of sorts, forcing us all to confront the dysfunctional system we had created together. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to envision a future where reconciliation might be possible, not through a return to old patterns but through the creation of something new, built on honesty, accountability, and genuine care, rather than obligation and enabling. The path would not be easy or straight, but at least now it seemed possible that there was a path at all. 1 year had passed since that fateful birthday party. The seasons had cycled through their changes, and our lives had found new rhythms and patterns. Emma had just celebrated her 10th birthday with a small party at our home, surrounded by school friends and a few family members, including my grandmother, Uncle Frank and Aunt Susan, and, somewhat surprisingly, my parents. The past 12 months had been transformative for all of us. After the family dinner at my grandmother's assisted living facility, my parents had gradually begun the difficult process of self-reflection. It hadn't been quick or easy, but with the help of family therapy sessions that I had offered to fund, they were starting to recognize the role they had played in creating our family's dysfunction. The hardest part, my mother had admitted during one particularly breakthrough session, was acknowledging that we treated our sons differently from the beginning. We always expected Abel to be the responsible one, even when he was just a child himself. My father, less verbally expressive but equally engaged in the process, had nodded in agreement. We put adult responsibilities on one son and infantilized the other. Neither was fair. For my part, I had to confront my own contribution to the unhealthy dynamics. By repeatedly stepping in as the financial savior without requiring accountability, I had helped maintain the very system I resented. My relationship with my parents was still healing, still fragile in many ways, but it was based on more honesty than ever before. They had adapted to their new financial reality with surprising resilience, my father even taking a part-time job as a golf instructor that he genuinely seemed to enjoy. My mother had reconnected with her love of gardening, transforming the small patio of their condo into an oasis of flowers and herbs. As for Tyler, his journey had been the most difficult and the most profound. The legal consequences of his actions had culminated in a deferred prosecution agreement that required restitution, community service, and mandatory counseling for both his financial improprieties and the substance abuse issues that had apparently been simmering beneath the surface for years. The restraining order had been lifted 6 months ago, after Tyler completed an anger management program and wrote formal apology letters to both Emma and me. The letter to Emma had been especially poignant in its simplicity and sincerity. "I was wrong to treat your gift with such cruelty," he had written. "You put love and time into making something special for me, and I responded with meanness that you never deserved. While I don't expect you to forgive me, I want you to know that the problem was entirely with me, not with your beautiful gift or your kind heart." He had enclosed a small, handmade wooden picture frame with the letter, clearly having put hours into crafting it himself. When I asked Emma if she wanted to see her uncle again, her response reflected wisdom beyond her years. "I think so, but maybe not alone at first. And I think he needs to know that saying sorry is just the beginning, not the end." Tyler had been working at the same insurance call center for nearly a year now, gradually earning promotions based on genuine effort rather than charm or family connections. He had moved to a slightly better apartment and was living within his means for the first time in his adult life. According to my grandmother, who had maintained contact with him throughout, he was attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings 3 times a week and had accumulated 10 months of sobriety. 2 weeks before Emma's birthday, he had called me directly for the first time since the restraining order was lifted. "I'd like to come to Emma's party," he said, his voice lacking the confident swagger I'd grown accustomed to over the years, "but only if both of you are comfortable with it. I completely understand if the answer is no." After discussing it with Emma and consulting our family therapist, we had decided he wasn't quite ready for that level of reintegration. Instead, I had suggested a smaller, more controlled meeting the week after her party, which was how, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Tyler came to be sitting across from Emma and me at a picnic table in the public park near our home. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," he said, his hands fidgeting nervously with the small wrapped package he had brought. "This means a lot." The physical changes in my brother were striking. He had lost the artificial polish that once defined him, no designer clothes or carefully styled hair. Instead, He wore simple jeans and a flannel shirt that actually suited him better than his previous flashy attire ever had. But it was the change in his eyes that struck me most forcibly. The desperate, calculating gleam had been replaced with something clearer, more present. "I brought you something, Emma," he said, sliding the package across the table. "It's okay if you don't want it." Emma looked to me for guidance, and I nodded encouragingly. She unwrapped the package carefully to reveal a small wooden box, similar in size to the one she had made for him a year ago, but with a different design. "I made it in my woodworking class," Tyler explained. "Part of my recovery program includes developing healthy hobbies and skills. Turns out I'm not half bad at this stuff when I actually try." Emma opened the box to find it lined with velvet and containing a delicate bracelet made of wooden beads. "It's beautiful," she said quietly, running a finger over the smooth beads. "Did you make the bracelet too?" Tyler nodded. "Took 3 attempts to get it right. The instructor said I was being too impatient with the first 2. "Patience is hard," Emma agreed seriously. "I'm still working on it too." A ghost of a smile crossed Tyler's face. "Yeah, I guess some things run in the family." The conversation continued, careful and measured, but genuine. Tyler didn't make excuses for his past behavior or try to minimize the hurt he had caused. Instead, he spoke openly about his recovery journey, the challenges of facing himself honestly for the first time, and the daily work of building a life based on integrity rather than shortcuts. "The hardest part," he admitted, "was realizing how much I'd been lying to myself. I really believed I was just having bad luck, that the world was against me somehow. Accepting that I was the common denominator in all my failures was brutal." As Emma went to try out the swings a short distance away, still within sight but out of earshot, Tyler turned to me with a more serious expression. "I owe you an apology that goes beyond words, Abel. For years I resented you for being successful while simultaneously exploiting that success. I was jealous and entitled and completely blind to the damage I was causing." "What changed?" I asked, genuinely curious about the transformation. He thought for a moment. "Rock bottom, partly. When everything was gone, when I was working a job I thought was beneath me, living in an apartment I hated, with no one to blame but myself, I finally had to face reality." He glanced toward Emma on the swings, but it was also that moment with the box, as crazy as that sounds. Something about hurting a kid who just wanted to give me a gift, seeing that cut on her face and feeling nothing but irritation that she was upset. It haunted me. It was like looking in a mirror and not recognizing myself, not liking what I saw at all. We watched Emma in silence for a few minutes. She had always loved swings, the simple joy of soaring through the air and defying gravity momentarily. "I don't expect things to go back to how they were," Tyler continued. "I wouldn't want them to, actually. That system was poison for everyone, including me. I just want a chance to be part of the family again, on healthier terms." "That's possible," I said carefully. "But it will take time and consistency. Trust is rebuilt slowly, through sustained actions, not promises or grand gestures." "I understand," he nodded. "I'm prepared for that. For the first time in my life, I'm thinking long-term instead of looking for quick fixes." As our meeting drew to a close, Emma rejoined us, slightly out of breath from her exertions on the playground. "Can I wear the bracelet?" she asked, holding up the wooden beaded creation. "Of course," Tyler replied. "It's yours." As she slipped it onto her wrist, she looked at her uncle with thoughtful eyes. "It fits perfectly. You must have remembered how small my wrists are." Something about this simple observation, the fact that Tyler had paid attention to such a detail, touched me deeply. Perhaps there was hope for genuine change after all. Over the following months, Tyler continued his steady progress. He joined us for occasional family dinners, always bringing small, thoughtful gifts for Emma that reflected actual consideration rather than empty gestures. He found a support group for people recovering from financial disorders and began counseling others who struggled with the same patterns of deception and entitlement that had defined his own life for so long. My parents, too, continued their journey toward healthier relationships. They had begun volunteering at a local community center, finding purpose in serving others rather than maintaining appearances. My father, particularly, seemed to have discovered a talent for mentoring disadvantaged youth, channeling the energy he had once used to enable Tyler into more constructive avenues. As for me, the experience had transformed my approach to both business and personal relationships. I established clearer boundaries with clients, colleagues, and family members alike. I learned to distinguish between genuine assistance and enabling dependence. Most importantly, I modeled for Emma the principle that love sometimes means allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their choices. One evening, as Emma and I sat on our back porch watching fireflies illuminate the gathering darkness, she asked a question that caught me by surprise. "Dad, are you glad all that stuff happened with Uncle Tyler and Grandma and Grandpa last year?" I considered carefully before answering. Not glad, exactly. It was painful for everyone. But I am grateful for what we learned and how we've grown. Sometimes the most difficult experiences teach us the most important lessons. She nodded sagely, the wooden bead bracelet from Tyler clinking softly as she moved her arm. Like when you have to fall off your bike a bunch of times before you learn to balance right. Exactly like that, I agreed. And you know what I've realized is the most important lesson from everything that happened? What? She asked, leaning against my shoulder. That true love isn't always about making things easy for someone. Sometimes, it's about having the courage to let them struggle so they can discover their own strength. And that financial support without emotional accountability can actually hurt the people we're trying to help. That's why you don't just give me stuff when I ask for it, she observed. Like when I wanted that expensive art set, and you made me earn half the money first. That's right, I smiled, impressed by her connection. I want you to value what you have and know that you're capable of earning things yourself. As the fireflies continued their luminous dance across our yard, I reflected on the journey our family had taken. The path had been painful, the confrontations difficult, but the transformation genuine. My brother was becoming someone I could respect. My parents were acknowledging their role in our family dynamics. And I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop protecting them from the consequences of their own choices. The wooden box that had sparked this entire journey now sat on Emma's bookshelf, repaired and repurposed as a container for her special treasures. Its presence served as a daily reminder that broken things, including relationships, can be mended with enough care, honesty, and time. Not to exactly what they were before, but perhaps to something stronger and more beautiful for having been broken and carefully restored. In the end, the greatest gift I could give my daughter was not financial security or protection from all hardship, but the example of a father who stood firm in his values, who believed in the power of natural consequences to shape character, and who understood that true family connections are built on respect and accountability rather than obligation and enabling. Some lessons can only be learned through experience, through the painful process of facing reality without the cushion of someone else's intervention. By allowing Tyler to finally experience those consequences, I had given him the opportunity for genuine growth that no amount of money or protection could provide. And in doing so, I had freed not just him, but our entire family from the destructive patterns that had held us captive for generations. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt in the short term, but led to positive growth in the long run? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I wish you the courage to set healthy boundaries in your own life when necessary.